What's that loophole? Workaround you've been keeping a secret that you can now share because they fixed it. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started. Story 1. There used to be these phones at airports that were just a direct line to a rental car place. The thing is, the way old rotary phones used to work was actually hanging up and picking up real fast a certain number of times. If you picked up one of those phones and hung it up 9 times real fast, it would dial an outside line and you could use it like a normal phone. Answer: I tried this trick at home when I was a teenager just to see if pulse dialing still worked. Turns out the phone company decided to interpret any rapid flipping of the hang-up switch like that as a distress signal and would connect you to 911. I had a real fun time convincing the dispatcher that I was absolutely positive that no one in the house had called 911 on purpose. I was super worried they would send a cop out anyways, and I would get in trouble. Story 2. In college, you had to buy a parking pass if you wanted to be able to have your car on campus. The pass was a sticker that you put on the back driver's side window, and it was pretty expensive for the full year. There was one year where I knew that for the second half of the year, I wasn't going to be on campus, much because of an internship. The school also sold parking passes that were good for 1 semester instead of the full year, so I bought that instead. What I realized is that the full year parking pass and the semester parking pass looked exactly the same, except for one small difference. The semester pass had an expiration date in the corner, whereas the full year pass had that date punched out, like with a hole puncher. So naturally, for the next 2 years, I'd buy the semester parking pass and just put a hole punch through the expiration date and saved hundreds of dollars on parking. Answer: in a very similar line of thought, during my last 2 semesters, I didn't want to buy a parking pass due to a recent price change that resulted in a semester pass being very similar in price to a year pass. Honestly, I could have, but it was the principle of the matter. I continued using my previous year's pass and then got a ticket, continued to use it, and got another ticket a month or so later. Then I started to wonder, what if I just put the ticket back on my windshield after parking? Didn't get another ticket between then and graduation. I guess they just saw the ticket on my windshield and assumed someone had handled it already. The total on the tickets wasn't that much less than the pass itself, but I never paid for the tickets, so that's a win in my book. Story 3. 10 years ago, I would visit my girlfriend at her college. The parking garage was $25 for overnight parking. I found out after getting a flat tire that the parking ticket for leaving my car on the street overnight was only $10. Probably saved $500 from this. Answer: a parking garage downtown was $15 day, but there was a $25 flat rate for lost ticket and $5.10 to exit after 10 p when there was no attendant, depending on the day. I rarely drove, so would park weeks at a time and either leave at night or pay the lost ticket fee. I did this for over a year. When the garage changed hands, they tightened up and started keeping written logs of LPs parked overnight, then upgraded the entire system to one based on your LP. When they did, I finally sold my long beast of a station wagon and bought something smaller that would fit in my apartment's parking garage without having to make a 10-point turn to park. Story 4. I didn't pay for internet for years because you could renew those Comcast 1HR free internet logins indefinitely with a Mac ID scrambler. Answer: as a kid, we would vacation at our grandma's house in Tahoe. Back then, not every person's internet needed a password, so the neighbors had internet that wasn't password protected. We ended up using their internet for years until one day they did get internet that needed a password. It did only work in a few spots in the house though, so guess that was the trade-off for free internet. Story 5. My company had a contest to help boost recruiting on LinkedIn. Grand prize was a cruise. We got points for various things. But what ended up actually mattering was the amount of new connections you gained. 1 point for each. We all started with like 100. The max was 30,000. I, with the help of my wife, logged into my account. Ended up winning with some 27,000 connections in the span of a few months. How? Basically on the mobile app back then, they would have a feed of connect recommendations that would refresh, scroll infinitely. There was no limit to it. Every other UI for sending a connection request would hit a cap, or you'd get emails accusing you of being a bot. And it turns out nobody on LinkedIn cares if they actually know you or what you say in a connection request, except a couple weird exceptions. Most people just ignore it or say, okay, whatever, sure, and accept. To this day, I get so much recruiter spam because of how visible I am. And also the feed is like the dead internet sloppiest of dead internet slop. Story 6. Didn't keep it a secret, but never shared on the internet. I'm a veteran, and years ago I was going through college getting my CS degree. The company I worked for had a program where they'd subsidize the purchase of a new computer with the caveat that the computer would double as my work machine. I decided to take advantage and get a new MacBook Pro. Apple offered both student and veteran discounts, but they aren't supposed to stack. During the ordering process, I opened up the pricing of the computer I wanted in two separate browsers. In one, I applied the student discount. In the other, I applied the veteran discount. Upon observation of the URLs, one of them had it in it. The two URLs looked something like website, student discount parameters, and website, veteran discount parameters. So I combined the two website, veteran discount parameters, dent discount parameters, and it stacked the discounts. Answer: this reminds me of a website that sold leather jackets. I found a coupon code and I had two jackets in the cart that I was deciding on. When I took one of the jackets out of the cart, the discount stayed the same. It was something like 10 off the entire order. I ended buying a couple 200 jackets, where I had 9 jackets in the cart initially. Put the discount code in, and it took 180 off. I then took out all but one jacket from the cart. Story 7. New York Times website. You click on an article, put it in reader mode, then hit refresh. Full article, no paywall. Story 8. Chipotle used to run a promo that gave you a free burrito with the purchase of a gift card. They allowed you to use a previously purchased gift card to purchase a new gift card. So I would just use the same gift card every time to get a free burrito for the duration of the promo. Answer: they closed that loophole pretty quickly, or at least they did in my area. So I would show my receipt for the gift card to get my free burrito and then buy another gift card. So I still got free burritos, and after the promo ended, I'd have 6 or 8 cards with 25 on them. I went to Chipotle often enough back then that it wasn't a big deal to essentially prepay for those meals. Story 9. I was going through chemo 5 years ago. I started running a fever, which meant an immediate drive to the emergency room. My partner couldn't drive me, so I parked in the deck. However, I ended up being admitted for a week before they could bring the fever down. A nurse told me on the day I was checking out to list the ticket as lost, and the system would only charge me for 1 full day, 20 instead of 7 days. Answer: hey, same. Wife had a baby. Due to complications, we were there for a week. Our car was in the lot the whole time. The total was like 150. I was about to have a meltdown. The sweet release of finally leaving that hospital with your spouse and newly born, only to be hit with some bullshit charge to leave. I told my wife I wasn't going to pay it. I was going to raise a huge stink. And then I saw the lost ticket button. Fudge genius. Got out of there for 20. Paying for parking while having a baby should be a crime. Story 10. Back when the Coke rewards were a thing, I used to enter the sweepstakes for the small rewards, like 50, 100 gift cards. Everyone else spent their codes on the high-end sweepstakes or direct gift cards or extra Coke beverages. I, on average, won one a month or more for many years. Answer: back in the magical time of the 90s and before, Pepsi and Coke would do promos where instead of typing in points or whatever, under the bottle cap would just say winner free, and you could use it like a coupon at any register for that product or send it in for the bigger stuff. I found out during a Mountain Dew promotion that if I pushed the bottom of the bottle against my chin just right, I could read if it was a winner through the neon green ambrosia before buying it. The employees always asked what I was doing. Def didn't look too sanitary, haha. But I got a ton of freebies that summer. Story 11. My old apartment was the 3rd floor of an old farmhouse. When I moved in, I noticed that the cable line for the 2nd floor apartment had a splitter with an empty spot right outside my window. I simply plugged into the empty spot on the splitter and got free basic cable for 3 years. I bought a cheap black box and got all the premium channels too. Saved me thousands. Story 12. When the first Stardew Valley concert was announced, I tried to buy tickets, but the demand was so overwhelming that they didn't actually enable the ticket buying screen for the venue. So I hit right-click in View Source, located in the header where the ID of the concert was listed, and went to a different button on the site. I swapped the ID in the URL, hit enter, and was the first person to buy tickets for the concert in Philly about 15 minutes before everybody else. Got the literal perfect seats, dead center first row of the balcony. Loved it. Answer: LOL, that's exactly how I got me a GPU for my PC back when they were super expensive and rare due to the crypto craze. Some retailers sold them for near MSRP, but would be sold out in milliseconds on every restock. But they had an in-stock indicator that went to in-stock a few minutes before they enabled the buy button. Did the exact same trick as you did and got one. Story 13. Back in the day, Net Zero dial-up's free version that had ads and time limits had really crappy programming to know it was free. After the line connected while it was handshaking, it would launch an X that checked the version and ran the timer and ads if it was the free one. You could just write a batch file to transfer the exe out of the directory to a different folder, and it would blissfully ignore that there was an entire freaking missing exe and just connect with no ads or time limits. I can share now because I haven't had a modem for a good 25 years. Story 14. For me is that you used to be able to skip any ad on YouTube by just pressing the I for info and press stop seeing this ad, and it would just skip every ad. I found it from a meme and I didn't tell a single soul, but now it looks like it's patched across every version and system, sadly. For a while, they patched it on mobile, but it still worked on TVs and game systems. But now they've fully eradicated it. Story 15. Way back when, at my university in Toronto, the parking ticket machines would accept any cards you put in, including old expired gift cards. I knew someone who would park, swipe an old Future Shop gift card and be out the door. Story 16. Back in college, I never got an electric bill after moving in a new apartment complex. After 2 months, I stopped worrying about it. I asked my neighbors how much their bill typically ran so I could compare. I was sure not to leave a forwarding address when I moved out, kept my South Texas apartment ice cold in summer. Years later, I checked and saw I had an unclaimed electricity refund. Not stupid. Losing a 100 refund beats them coming after me for what was probably $2,000 worth of bills over 2 years. Answer? Similar. I moved into a new apartment the same week. It was being sold to a new company. I was supposed to show them that I had put utilities in my name, but there wasn't anyone around when I needed to. They just gave me the keys more or less out of laziness. Never put the bill in my name, and it was about 7 months before anyone caught it. I just told the utilities that I had just moved in and only had to pay from then on. No one ever checked again. So free 7 months of electricity. Story 17. Early 90s university parking passes had scratch-off dates. You bought it, scratched off the month, and in theory, you could only use it for that month. I got a silver paint pen and just filled them in as I went along. My teenage self was stoked to save on 11 months of permits per year. This caught on, and they changed the permits a couple years later. Story 18. Found some parking lots, had terminals. You paid. At that, didn't process the credit cards immediately, and you could use an old, empty prepaid card to pay for parking for any length of time, and as long as it wasn't an expired card. Did it for years. Story 19. My college engineering department had a special Unix server that you would log into for engineering classes, and you had to take an Engineering 101 class to learn how to use it if you were an engineering major. One of the lessons was how to restore your home directory from a backup. I don't remember the command, it was 25 years ago, but one of the command arguments was your username. For the hell of it, I tried it and just put the professor's username in there instead and got his entire home directory, including what looked like solutions for all the projects. I deleted it immediately, though. It was Engineering 101. I didn't need it, and even if I did, I would have been too nervous to keep it. But yeah, it was a school known for engineering, but the IT that ran the back end for everything was a joke. Story 20. You can mute gas station ads that play at the pump. It's typically the second button down on the right of the screen. Works sometimes, not always. Story 21. Back when I worked for a bank, you used to be required to bring in new money every month to meet goals. Well, I figured out that if you had 2 people on an account and just switched up whose social showed first, the money in the account would be considered new. Met my goals for months with that simple trick. Answer. Used to work for a company that insisted that all employees call 20 customers a day to see if we could sell them anything. Lists of customers were printed out. All workers were handed a portion of the list. Each call had to last at least a minute, as that was decided to be adequate time to perform the call in a thorough enough manner. Everyone disliked it because we were effectively cold calling existing customers for an industry where the customers only needed to buy things as needed. I noticed that one member of staff was having no problem with the task, and on passing her desk, I noticed she was making personal calls as she needed to her daughter's school, the gas company, electric company. She never got into trouble for not making the required calls, but she never seemed to make the calls. The company wasn't checking the phone number against the list. All they cared was that a number of calls went out by each desk phone number. I found numbers that never answered directly. Bank of America had you choose from a number of options, and you could choose to hear the options in Spanish too. HSBC had a number for English speaking, and another for Cantonese-speaking customers. And both had the option to hear the options again in the other language, which means you could go from one to the other indefinitely. Local utilities let you enter your account number and have a long time for you to do it wrong and a long time to try again. And I could call my own cell phone on silent and leave myself messages that could be deleted. I was commended on never needing coaching because I always managed to get my outgoing calls done in the first 90 minutes of the day. When it became time for pay raises, linked in part on performance, that other employee and I were the only ones to get the maximum raise. Work smarter, not harder. Story 22. When I was in college and on the dining plan, we could spend unused money in a few different shops around campus. I forgot about it until the end of the year and had hundreds of unused dining dollars that were just going to go to waste. I discovered the campus Jamba Juice allowed one to purchase gift cards using the shoot currency, so I put like $600 into a JJ gift card the least day of the semester. I had free Jamba Juice the entire next year, and the store immediately changed the policy such that dining dollars couldn't be sent on cards. Answer: my brother ran a little scheme with something similar. He would tell people he could get them money off the card and then charge them a fee depending on how much they had, either a percentage or flat rate. The University Bucks card worked at 7-Eleven. He'd buy one of those Visa cards, and you could load it up with money from the university card. He'd go to numerous places on the block and get cash back. Story 23. Up until a few months ago, there was a workaround that let you stream Netflix on a PS5 from outside the household by just opening the app through the recommendations, instead of actually clicking the app. Story 24. Whenever I'd want to use this Photoshop app, it would let you add all of the fun things, but it wouldn't show you a full, finished picture if you saved it. It'd say purchase premium to see, but it'd still let you screenshot it. You had to zoom out a bit so it didn't SE the tools, but it worked. They fixed that after like a year of me doing that. Answer: I did something similar in FL Studio. They have plugins, effects, synths, etc. that you can try for free but need to pay to use fully. I would add these to a file, tweak them to the exact point I liked, then record the instrument plus effect into a WAV file and paste that directly into the main file before removing the plugin from the file so I could save it. It might still work, but I haven't produced in a couple years. Story 25. A long time ago, maybe 30 years or so, I saw a guy who parked his car at a metered space in SF. These were the old mechanical parking meters, with the coin slot on the front, a little arced window, and an indicator needle to show the time. He took off his shoe and smacked the side of the meter just after he dropped in a nickel. The needle moved all the way over to the 2-hour mark. Story 26. Plenty of people knew it, so not just me. If you drive in from behind Magic Kingdom, there was a U-turn to avoid paying for parking. It was there for all the tourists who accidentally exited the parking lot. Story 27. 9 years ago, when Upside, the travel site, first launched and had added international travel, I started playing around with a couple destinations. I figured out that it would suggest a hotel further away from your desired destination with a bigger Upside bonus. For instance, if I was looking at London, I would search a suburb and one of the alternate options would be in London with a bigger Upside. So messing with the system, I booked an international trip for close to $1,400, but was able to get like $950 back in gift cards. The loophole was closed shortly after. Story 28. Microsoft Teams. You could hover over your name in an email and click the call button. You go into a call with yourself, mute mic, minimize the window, manually change your status back to available, and your computer would stay active. No mouse jiggling or keyboard clicking required. Story 29. While in college, my university had a print quota. As a liberal arts sociology student, my print quota would be gone rather quickly. I like reading on paper where I can highlight and make notes. I learned of a specific computer lab in the Communication School of Communication. Proceeded to print every single reading, paper, even a capstone project in color for free for about 2 years. My last semester I went in as I had done years prior, and it finally got fixed. Story 30. My office building used to lock the doors at 5, so if you went somewhere else on campus at 4:30 and then tried to get back, you had to wait for security to let you in. They said they'd be right there, weren't. I discovered that while the door was locked, you could climb over the balusters of the stairway, going up, step onto the railing of the stairway, going down, and get right in. Doors were locked to entrance but not exit. Wasn't a fire hazard. Story 31. When Pepsi did their rewards thing back in the 90s, I had a family member work at one of the bottling and distribution centers who would bring brown bags full of points to me and my brother. We got pretty much everything in the catalog by the time it was over. Family member told us the 24 and 30 packs had the most points and for some reason would always have the most problems during printing and packaging. Story 32. At the hospital where I used to work as a tech, we would get charged for parking. They still do, but they changed the machines. For an 8-hour shift or longer, parking was $45 basically anywhere in a 15-mile radius. We were paid just above minimum wage, so that would be a major hit to finances. But there wasn't any other choice since the only affordable housing was more than an hour's drive away. People working night shifts or weekends got a steep discount, though, where they got a pass where they were charged $5 at the end of every week. The passes only worked when scanning in after 5 p.m., and scanning out before 9 a.m., or so we were told. In reality, the machines were old enough that it couldn't really tell the difference. So since shifts started or ended at 7 a.m. or p.m., I would just scan my overnight pass even if I was on day shift. One day they put in newer machines that were able to discern whether you were scanning in or out, though, and put an end to that, but it made the difference between starving or having some food on the table during that time. Now I avoid that by just sticking to night shifts and only working in the day if I can get a ride from someone. Story 33. I feel like this is a secret that the organizers almost want you to exploit. Check out a digital book from the library, loaded on your Kindle. Put the Kindle into airplane mode. This keeps it from checking back in with home base to know that your loan has ended. Return the book to the library from another device, allowing the next person to read it, and you have unlimited time to enjoy it on your Kindle. You don't get the fancier Kindle functions, like looking up words or syncing to other devices. And if you ever turn off airplane mode to check out another book, it will figure out that your original book is overdue and suck it back into the ether. Story 34. At my local grocery store, they sell these glass bottles of milk. They cost nearly $8 because they charge you a deposit for the bottle. On the app, they only charge $4. I'd buy them there, then return them and get the back for the bottles. I was getting free milk for a good while. Story 35. We moved into a new house and all the appliances needed to be replaced. The local appliance store had a rebate for Frigidaire appliances, something like buy 3, get 1 free with the appliance store handling the rebate. Frigidaire also offered the same rebate, so we double-dipped. New dishwasher, stove, over-the-range microwave, refrigerator, washer, and dryer for the price of 2 appliances. Story 36. Back when MoviePass was a thing, you could sign up for 10 months and be able to watch a movie a day. They mail you a debit card that front-loads a small amount each day when you request it, and you are supposed to buy a ticket for same-day showing. I would go to the kiosk and buy a ticket reservation for a later date. Once I went every day at lunchtime for 2 weeks to get 14 tickets for Black Panther premiere for my group of friends. Answer: we went in on a purchase of 2 of the original movie passes with friends at one of the big box stores that had a no questions asked return policy. We harmful behavior the hell out of it, going to see multiple movies in a week. Eventually, the company wised up and started making it harder and harder to do this, like only allowing a single showing per pass of a movie and then like 1 movie a month or something. Because of the return policy at the store, we were able to return it for the full price we paid. So basically saw tons of free movies for months. A bonus, there were at least a couple of times while at a screening, something would mess up and they wouldn't be able to show the film. I've never worked in a theater, so I don't know how common this is, but with the frequency we were going, this happened to us at least twice. When the movie wouldn't play, for whatever reason, we were offered additional free movie vouchers as compensation. We got to use those for a while after our movie passes were gone. Story 37. My parking garage had a sign over 8 spaces right by the elevator for parkers with a day pass. They stopped giving day passes 5 years ago. Parked in best space for years. They finally took the signs down last month. Story 38. Relatively small, but my old job had to manually update prices for everything as sales went on. I noticed that peppermint patties were never changed to their original price and made a habit of buying a few for 80 off every time I worked. Another from much later in life, my job had an employee cafeteria that had fountain drinks, but there was no night shift staff, so drinks were just free at night. Story 39. For Canadians, Future Shop's in-store pickup policy was that you can reserve any item for pickup that day for as long as they are on the shelves. This included games released that same day. So instead of pre-ordering, I would just wait until day of, call in that morning and ask for them to reserve a copy for me, then pick it up after school. It guaranteed I could play a game on release day without having to pre-order. Story 40. In university at the start of the year, they published these corny student magazines that had vouchers in them for a free coffee from various coffee shops on campus. I just collected like 25 of these magazines and filled my wallet with vouchers. I was surprised nobody else did that. I guess they have a sense of shame I didn't. Story 41. This one was so dumb obvious, I dislike to even call it a loophole, but I am positive it wasn't intended. Years ago, I signed up for internet through a local internet provider, and like every internet provider, they had a special new client discount. This one was 50 off for the first year. One time I was looking through my account options, shortly after my plan switched to full price, and saw they actually let you change your internet plan through their website without actually having to talk to a person. Which, great! Super convenient. But the hilarious thing is that one of the options available to choose was the new user 50 off plan. So I switched to it, and it worked. Got another full year 50 off without trying to nag a customer service representative. Unfortunately, they eventually redid their whole web platform, and the ability to change your plan using the website was removed entirely. Story 42. The parking garage in my town near my apartment never had a system to ticket people who overstayed their time. Our councilman told everyone about this hack. He passed away last year, and new parking garage management put up signs saying they ticket now. Was great while it lasted. Story 43. My college had expensive parking and limited spots for freshmen. So my freshman year, I just didn't get a pass and parked on the street, not allowed if you had a first-year pass. But since mine had no school marking, I was able to get through the year in not an ideal spot, but better than the freshman lot. The next year, I knew you could get a temporary pass that hung from the rear view if you had a car on campus for less than 2 weeks at a time. Got it once, scanned it in, photoshopped out the expiration date, and printed blank ones to use as needed. Sold a couple for extra cash, too. Story 44. Back in 2002-2003, there was a gas station by my apartment that had an ATM that with every transaction you made, you could possibly win a free 2-liter bottle of soda. My roommate and I, as poor as we were, discovered when we were both checking our account balances that every balance inquiry won. We walked out with a few bottles that day and would hit it up once a week or so till I moved away. Story 45. When I was enrolling in college, I maxed out my unit limit for the semester. However, I needed to take 2 more classes so I can graduate on time. But the system doesn't allow choosing more classes if you're at limit. I noticed that the only thing preventing me from selecting the classes are disabled radio buttons. So I removed the disable attribute on the input tags via inspect element, and I was able to enroll all my classes. They had no server-side validation LMAO. Story 46. Years ago, the electronic ticketing system in my city for public transport had a policy that if you complete 9 trips in a week, the remaining trips were free up until midnight on Sunday. The theory was that you could go home for free on Friday night if you work full-time. But I often use this to travel to the next city over for free on the weekends, which would normally cost $20 each way. My daily commute was around $5 each way, so I would save heaps in travel costs. If I knew I had done less trips, if I had a day off, for example, I would add an extra trip on my way home. There was a 1-hour window where you could continue the same trip, so I would get a bus to a shopping center, spend an hour there, then start a new trip to go home. They must have realized eventually that people were exploiting this, so they changed it to all trips half price after 8 trips in a week, which would have been the same cost for people who use public transport for 5 days a week, but meant no more extra long weekend trips for free. The fares have since been reduced in cost, so it's not necessary to try to exploit it anymore. But at the time, it was definitely a money saver considering how overpriced it was. Whoever came up with the original policy was either very stupid or very nav-emo. Story 47. You used to be able to sign up for Moe's Rewards and get a free order of nachos, like a huge burrito bowl basically on chips. I signed up with so many emails, worked for 3 months. Story 48. This was quite a few years ago. Some nameless company rolled out 2FA with hardware fobs. These hooked into the login screen of Windows 7 and Windows 10. I discovered one day if you log in, username, password, 2FA token, it worked normally. But if you did Ctrl-Alt-Del and got the login screen on a locked machine, you are SOL because you are not an administrator. Unless you let it time out and disappear, then Ctrl-Alt-Del again and just hit enter, and you unlocked it without entering any credentials. Story 49. Southbound on the New Jersey Turnpike, you could skip paying the toll by taking the last service station, going behind the garage, then make a left and head to Delaware Memorial Bridge, saving 6. Useless with Easy Pass. Story 50. When I was poor, I worked in a shopping complex that had a flagship Starbucks. They were always so slammed, especially with college students, and I went in every day. As soon as I got to gold status with 12 AOZ black coffees, I would just keep the cup, rinse it out, and go for a free refill a couple times a day to keep going. I didn't buy a single cup of coffee for months. Story 51. Yahoo Personals. They charged a fee to be able to message other users, or maybe it was that you had to buy credits to reply, and if you had Bro credits, they didn't show the username. Can't remember as it was 20 years ago. However, on a person's profile page, you could Ctrl-U to view the web page source code, hit Ctrl-F to search for username. The words right after it in the first result were the person's Yahoo username. It was just hidden on their profile page unless you were logged in with a paid account. And if they were a Yahoo Personals user, they were also highly likely a Yahoo Mail user. So you just take their Yahoo Personals username and add yahoo.com after it, and at least 9 times out of 10, it'll be an active email address for that person, which you can send an email to for free. And if you format your email the right way, it doesn't look particularly suspicious. Story 52. Not really a secret, but 30. Some years ago, I looked into having radiokeratotomy. It would have cost me a few $1,000s per eye. The surgeon's office ran my company, provided insurance information, but they didn't think it would cover anything. It covered all of the cost. A couple of coworkers got in on the action before the company found out and had the coverage changed to a cheaper and less inclusive plan. Edited to say I currently wear bifocals. Answer: the same thing happened to me around 1983. RK had just been legalized in the United States, and my company's group health plan approved it for me. A few weeks after I'd had the surgery, they actually tried to renege. The company I worked for just laughed at them. Needless to say, I was the first and only person for whom that health plan paid for radiokeratotomy, and I was one of the first 100 patients in the United States to have it done. What a miracle it was. I had been legally blind since about the second grade and had nearly 20/20 vision after the surgery, at no cost to me. P.S. And I'm probably one of the few people who remembers who Adam Troy actually is. All those adventures on the Tiki. Story 53. Instacart offers like 10 off of a 35 order through their restaurant orders. You could earn this if you bought like 40 in groceries anyway. Then if you found a restaurant with a buy one, get one free item, they didn't have a limit. So you could buy 70 worth of food for 35 and then apply the 10 off coupon to get it for 25. And if you did the pickup option, there's be no fees. This got me a lot of good takeout for super cheap. I don't know if they patched this per se, but I stopped doing this, actually canceled my account altogether after I learned that there's virtually no support if something goes wrong, and they will keep your awesome. The promotion is through Instacart, and the order is through Uber Eats. So as soon as something goes wrong, they each point at each other for who is at fault, and no one will give your money back. Even worse if something goes wrong and you do pickup, because then they say they aren't liable, and it's your fault or the restaurant's fault. Story 54. If you ordered food within the McDonald's app, the order wouldn't go through if the total was less than 1. So when I had free food to redeem, I'd add something to the food that's less than 1. The order would get canceled, the free food points were refunded back, and the store employees would be too confused as to what happened that they would make the food. Story 55. I worked at a licensed store Starbucks, like the smaller ones in a grocery store. We didn't have a standalone Starbucks system, so we couldn't redeem Starbucks rewards, but customers could use gift cards, which would then earn points if they had it linked to a Starbucks account. The grocery store register was separate from the Starbucks gift card machine. So if they paid with a gift card, we would enter in on the gift card machine and then zero out the total on the grocery store register by marking it as a gift card. I only worked there part-time, and one time someone asked if they could ring up grocery store items and use their gift card. I asked my manager, and she said yes. And I'm thinking, so they are earning Starbucks points on groceries? That's allowed? But I didn't question it. So whenever I bought small items in the store, I always used a Starbucks gift card so I could also earn points. There was also a few times I bought a Starbucks gift card using a Starbucks gift card, which gave points. Story 56. I lived in a privately run student housing facility that would charge you for Wi-Fi internet access. You needed to purchase a monthly plan for a certain allocation of data per month. I didn't know about this until I had moved in and signed a 1-year lease. As I was moving into my room, I found that each room had a cheap and tiny smart TV that had access to free-to-air IPTV channels. Taking a look at the back of the TV, I found that it was connected to an Ethernet port. Well, I decided to make use of the networking course that I was studying and plug my laptop into that port and discovered it had unrestricted internet access. Off I went to buy a cheap Wi-Fi router and plug that into the port, so I had my own free and unlimited Wi-Fi access for the next 3 years. Someone should have easily noticed that this one specific port had abnormally high traffic, but I was never questioned or had the port cut off. In the last 6 months of me living there, the business changed owners, and the new owners made the Wi-Fi free for everyone. So my little hack became obsolete. Story 57. It never happens anymore, but in like 2012, the trend in marketing was to do email newsletters with competitions in them. I would sign up for the newsletters from everything in my city, coffee shops, music venues, bookstores, etc. I would just enter everything. Pretty sure almost nobody entered those things because I would win stuff every few weeks. Went to quite a few free gigs and events. Story 58. Pepsi ran contests to give away free drinks and other stuff by codes under the cap of the 20 OZ bottles. If you turned the Mountain Dew bottles upside down, you could clearly read the bottom of the cap to see if it was a winner. Story 59. My kid and I were at an arcade and he wanted to play one of those claw machines for rubber ducks. The machine guaranteed a duck per attempt, but we figured out that after the claw dropped the duck, if you use the joystick to push the claw to the right immediately, it would let you go again without swiping the play card. He was delighted to have so many ducks and passed them out to other kids. The next time we went back, someone had fixed the glitch, but we have great memories of the ducks that never ended. Story 60. I went to Disney's California Adventure right after they opened back in the early 2000s. I think FastPass was also pretty new. Anyway, we heard from some other kids there that you could put anything in the FastPass machine to make it print one. I tried my library card and it worked. So my sister and I ended up with tons of FastPasses and ended up going on California Seaman like 10 times in a row. It was amazing. Story 61. In the first month of my freshman year of college, I rode with a group of upperclassmen to a liquor store and watched one of my new friends, a senior exchange student from France, buy a case of beer using his ISIC card, International Student Identity Card. This was back in 2000, right after most state driver's licenses had started adding anti-counterfeit measures like holograms and mag stripes. Fake IDs were getting riskier and believable ones were hard to come by. The ISIC card was still just a simple laminate, and although it displayed a birth date, was only meant to prove full-time student status to obtain discounts on food, lodging, travel, etc. Yet the sales clerk had accepted one for age verification. I then learned that my friend had used it not once, but multiple times at other liquor stores and bars without question. So I knew what I had to do next. After an hour of work in the media lab using the college's iMac, laser printer, and laminator, I had my very own ISIC card showing I was a 21-year-old exchange student from Seldorf. The first time I used it, I was nervous as hell. The cashier looked at the card for a while, looked at me, looked back at the card, and then asked in her pronounced southern drawl, "Are you really from Germany?" "Yeah, ich bin aus Deutschland." I guess that means yes. For the next 3 years, I bought carloads of booze with impunity for me and my other underage friends. I was only challenged on its validity once, before another store employee piped up and said, "Nah, man, that's Bart. He's been coming here forever." Ironically enough, when I actually turned 21, I had to keep using my fake ISIC card at the local liquor stores because all the employees knew me as this German guy. Story 62. If you find a single space parking meter made by Duncan Solutions, up, enter, down, enter, enter, enter. Typing this code quickly into the 4-button panel will give you access to the programming menu. I don't recall the button sequence from here. You can locate and load the PG file, which will take you out of the programming mode, grant you maximum time on the meter without paying. Story 63. My friend was a pilot for Frontier. He taught me the trick to use your TopoAway card as a credit card to get free TV, back when you had to pay for in-flight entertainment. Everyone flying to Philly from Denver during the 2008 World Series got to watch Game 5A, courtesy of my roadside assistance membership. Story 64. At my UPS center, we used to be issued fuel cards to fuel up our trucks in the morning at local gas stations. I was filling up the tank like 50-75 a day, LOL. I attached this fuel card to an app that gave me cash back. I would put my phone number in for rewards at the pump. I earned so much darn free shoot at those gas stations and so much cash back. RIP fuel cards. Story 65. There used to be a trick where you could fix a printer by gently slapping it. Now printers are smart enough to take it personally. Story 66. Nando's, UK-based fast food chicken restaurant, gave out loyalty cards that you got a stamp for every time you visited. Free gifts after X amount of stamps. Stamper was the chicken logo, store number, and then the signature of the server. Photoshopped the stamper, had it made and shipped in the US, as thought a UK-based supplier may not print it. Voila, a lot of free chicken. Nando's moved to an electronic system after a few years, scam over. Story 67. I used to have to park in a structure board for work. It would max out at 20. per day, which is insane considering I work 5 days a week. If you lost the ticket, it would automatically charge you the full day rate. Downtown employees could get our own rate with a little barcode. The employee rate was half price, so I was still spending $50 a week on parking. My coworker tipped me off that if you hit lost ticket, then scan the employee barcode. Instead of charging 10, it was only 2.50 for whatever reason. So I went from potentially 100 per week to park at work to 12.50. Story 68. During the McDonald's Monopoly game, Best Buy was a major sponsor. On the side of the McDonald's whatnot would be the peelable Monopoly game piece along with a Best Buy buck, BBB, worth either 1 or 5. When a customer would redeem the BBB at a physical store location, the cashiers would enter a standard 1 or 5 discount to the item on the POS machine and collect them for processing at the end of the night. There was no direction given to store management about what to do with the BBB once redeemed and collected at day's end. The collected tickets would pass through my position within the store, and rather quickly, I made the realization that nothing was being done with the BBBs. Hundreds of BBBs would pass through the store daily, and I collected each day's bounty. Several friends and I traveled to nearby Best Buys and would redeem the stacks of BB, each totaled to the maximum allowed per transaction, 200. At the time, the iPod mini was priced at $109.99. After the BBB discount was applied, the iPod mini was free. My friends would each take turns buying the iPod mini for me. With the next store, they would redeem the 200 for whatever they wanted in the store. I would then sell the iPod mini on eBay Buy It Now for $189, each selling almost immediately. I did the same for Madden games across PlayStation and Xbox platforms, always selling at a slightly below the regular selling price to guarantee an almost immediate sale. Throughout that entire promotion, our group hit a dozen stores over a 2-state area to our great success. Here is when the real razzle-dazzle of the loophole appears. On each of the BBB was a unique code for a one-time BestBuy.com use. I meticulously recorded the unique codes to a spreadsheet, repeating the process online, having iPod minis and all manner of sub-200 merchandise shipped to friends and family. The Nintendo GameCube rig I play to this day was sourced from that operation, and to this day I am extremely proud of my discovery and leveraging of that loophole. Best Buy did not sponsor the Monopoly game in subsequent years. Story 69. Dial-up internet used to dial in, then minimize the login window and have unlimited internet. Edit. Yup, I'm old. Story 70. A couple years ago, Casey's gas stations had a glitch with their reward system, and I paid 0.24 gallon for gas. Merry Christmas to me indeed. Story 71. The Vermont loophole. Buying cars without titles and getting them registered in Vermont, then transfer them back to your state so you can get a title in your name. Story 72. To get an offline copy of videos from streaming services, start a Zoom meeting without inviting anyone, turn on recording and watch the video using screen share. Story 73. 20 years ago, when I started college in a major city, the bus pass for college students was just a sticker you put on your student ID. You would flash the ID at the bus driver when you boarded. So obviously I scanned my friends and printed off a bunch of them on sticker paper, and no one I knew paid for bus passes for a year. Story 74. IDK how much of a loophole this is, but years ago when I worked at McDonald's, they were doing the Best Buy bucks with the Monopoly game. Basically everything that had a Monopoly piece on it had another ticket on for Best Buy bucks, and everyone was guaranteed to be at least $1. So I talked to my buddy that was a manager, and he ordered a few extra cases of McChicken boxes and large fry containers, left them by the dumpster when I was closing one night, and went back for them later. We ended up with over 1,000 in Best Buy bucks, but not a single one was more than $1. So to use them, they had to scan every single one, or if you did it online, you had to put in a 16-digit code for each ticket. I did a few hundred online and stocked up on PS2 games, and we both went to the store and got new speakers and amps for our trucks. Story 75. I found a way to stop Google AI results. Just search how to stop it on another engine and not Chrome, but they patched it and I get the crappy results again. Story 76. Probably pretty common and maybe still works, but I'm in my 30s now and have no need to go to the mall. The local mall near us was pretty expensive parking, but the first 15 minutes was free. We'd hang out for a couple hours, and then Rochambeau, who would go down to hit the button for the garage entry machine to spit out a ticket for us, so we could use that ticket to scan the machine and not pay for parking since we were under the 15-minute limit. We thought we were so slick, ha 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 ha. Story 77. When I wasn't allowed to have internet access on my phone, I figured out some of the games I was allowed had ads with the I button. Usually it was for more information about the advertisement, but sometimes clicking that connected you straight to the Google homepage. Trivia crack is how I stayed chronically online for 4 years while having a locked down phone. Answer, bro, I have this exact same experience. My mom took away all my social media and internet stuff, so I would sometimes get ads that would redirect me to a website, and if you scroll through any website enough, you can eventually find a link to a page with another 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 link to a page until you get to Google, and my 12-year-old addict brain needed to see some boobies. So once you're at Google, you're golden. Story 78. Back when I was living in D.C., the WMATA D.C. Metro still operated on paper tickets. They had a magnet strip on them that would read the amount of credit you had on the ticket. So when you put it in the machine to pay a fare, it would deduct the cost of the fare from your credit and spit out a brand new ticket. This magnet strip could be carefully cut into 3 long strips. So what we would do is buy a 100 ticket, slice the magnet strip into 3 thin strips, and glue it over a different worthless ticket's magnet strip that was scratched out. Then you feed that into a machine, and it spits out a perfectly new 98.75 ticket. Those can, of course, be split apart again, compounding significantly. Selling these tickets at 30 discount on Craigslist was basically my summer job. Story 79. When I was a kid, Arby's would have a survey on the receipt with a free beef and cheddar as the incentive to complete it. Take the survey, get a code to put on the receipt, use receipt as coupon for free sandwich. Except you would get another receipt with the free sandwich. There were cookies on the site to prevent you from filling out another survey, but if you erased the cookies, you could do it again. My brother and I went through so many free beef and cheddars. Story 80. In college, I once had a sort of reloadable gift card that could only be used at Publix grocery stores that my parents had the other card so they could add money to it. I would have them add money for groceries and I would go buy a Visa gift card. I'd take that Visa gift card, register it with whatever company was the vendor for it, connect it to my Venmo account, send the balance to a friend who would send it back so I could transfer the money to my bank account so I could buy plant substance. Sometimes the Publix employee would push back, saying I couldn't buy a gift card with a gift card. But Publix is so customer friendly that I would normally say something like, oh, this is reloadable. It's basically cash, or one time a simple, oh, I do this all the time. It's fine, and they would just let me do it. Needless to say, I don't think you can do either of those anymore. Story 81. A few years ago, I moved to an apartment building which has EV charging option in the garage. Very rare at that time. You have to plug your vehicle and then start charging through an app. One day after plugging the charger, I realized my phone was dead, but noticed that charging had been started. Used free charging for almost 8 months. Another thing to note, they had 2 EV chargers, and this trick worked on only one of them. At that time, there was only 2 Teslas, including mine, in whole building, and I think the other Tesla owner also figured that out somehow, because I never saw the guy charging on the other charger, ever. Story 82. Kmart used to offer CDs with their blue light, special free dial-up internet access back in the day. It was supposed to be for a month or something. I can't remember what the check was to prevent it from being harmful behavior, but I was like 12 years old, and it was something simple enough for me to get around. I used that shoot for at least 3 years. Story 83. Back in college, I ended spending most weekends visiting my friends at a different school. Parking on campus was restricted, and as sneaky as I tried to be, I would occasionally get tickets. One of my friends worked the campus public safety and informed me that the tickets were honor system, and there was secretly no penalty for not paying them, so I just parked with impunity from then on and threw the tickets away when I got them. Story 84. Honestly, I don't even know if this was ever fixed, but back in the original Counter-Strike days, if you ran with a flashbang in your hand and ran against a wall at about a 45 angle as you're running and threw the grenade, it would blow up inside the wall, flashing everybody on that side of the map. Far as I'm aware, no one ever used it against me. So that means other than me, people probably didn't know about that. Story 85. When airlines first started mobile phone tickets, it just went to a normal HTML web page. You would leave that up on your phone and not refresh and go to airport. With TSA and flight boarding, if you were priority boarding when status, I forget the thing, you could get through the fast lane and also board first. I would just edit the downloaded HTML in the browser on my phone to change to Group 1. I figure if I ever got busted, I would just refresh the page and blame the computers. I flew over 100K miles yearly. Flights every week, and did this for a number of years till they changed it. Story 86. You used to be able to charge accessories in Verizon retail stores using a kiosk. Just punch in your phone number and it would bill your account with what you scanned like self-checkout. You'd get your stuff and a receipt as long as your phone number was tied to a Verizon account. Bad part was that it didn't care if you had a billing account or were a prepaid customer. Prepaid customers never get a bill, but it let you charge to your account. You'd walk away with hundreds in merchandise and no way to ID you or send you a bill. Was magic. Story 87. I would fill up gas at Walmart and use a gift card to pay for it. I sometimes forgot to refill the card, but it still let me fill the tank. I never did it on purpose, but looking back, I should have. Story 88. Lyft rider referrals used to give credits and coupons after they took their first ride, except it started giving me them on every ride they took, and I gave it out a lot to daily riders. I had free rides everywhere. Even when I ran out, the coupons made it cheaper than the bus. I feel like I contributed to Lyft's near bankruptcy. Story 89. The small local cable company in my city would just disconnect the wire from the pole to the house when service was disconnected. It was just a simple coax cable connection. I paid the local meth head $20 to climb up the pole on a sketchy ladder and just reconnect the cable. I got free basic cable for 2 years, and the meth head got a bag of meth. Went on to do this service for a bunch of my friends in the neighborhood. Story 90. My college bookstore would only allow returns of books if they were in the original cellophane with sticker. I found a place that I could shrink wrap for $3 and kept sticker and returned all of my books every semester for 2 years. Story 91. Before Walmart started checking barcodes for returns, whenever my 360 would break, I'd buy one from Walmart, put the broken Xbox back in the box, return it the next day, and get a full refund. All they did back then was check the product for visible damage, the receipt for the item method of payment. I did this about 3 times. I didn't want to wait 2 to 4 weeks for it to be shipped back to my house. One loophole I loved was the ability to skip ads on Tubi Pluto TV. Whenever the ad timer started, you could fast FWD 20 seconds and then rewind 20 seconds, and that would cancel the ad. Story 92. Back in college, I realized that there were 2 locks on most coin-operated laundry machines. The actual money was one of those really complicated circular locks. But the access panel for the control panel and machine guts was a bullshit 3-pin. I could pick that chute with 2 hairpins in about 20 seconds. I started by cheating my own laundry. Then I started a mini and dorm laundry service. Between the stolen cost and convenience, I paid for my bread and booze for a couple semesters. Answer. My loophole was also laundry related. The dorm laundry room had a shelf where people kept their detergent, and there was a metal plate about the size of a paperback book. It was always on the shelf, never left around on the floor or the tables. In my second semester, a senior showed me why. If you pushed in the slider with your quarters all the way, the quarters would drop into the box and the machine would start. But if you pushed the slider in really slowly, you could hear a ratcheting sound, like 5 distinct clicks. The machine started on 4 and the quarters dropped at 5. You couldn't pull the slider back with just your hands. So if you pushed the slider 4 clicks and then used the metal plate to give you enough leverage to yank the slider back towards you, you got free laundry. I was selling my plasma broke in college. So this trick was literally the difference between having clean clothes and not having clean clothes. The metal plate was still there when I went back for my 10th reunion, but the machines were card swipers at some point after that. Story 93, 2000 to 10. Black Friday deals. I would pick what big ticket item I wanted from the ads and show up a couple of days ahead. Once I verified the serial number, I'd pick up the item and hide it somewhere else in the store. Then show up slightly before Black Friday opened, find the item, and put it in my cart. Or to 10. I had to wait till the Black Friday time hit and be first in line. 8-10. They didn't wheel the items out until the drop, but the prices were already changed at the register. So if you had it a couple hours early in your cart, just go straight to checkout, and it rang up for the Black Friday price. Story 94. Robocalls never stop unless you answer and then immediately mute. It'll hang up after a few seconds. But this in the robo world confuses the system, and it thinks it is a deadline and removes it. Story 95. I figured out how to exploit matchmaking in the original Modern Warfare 3 for large parties to be able to pick the map you want 100 of the time. The matchmaking 50-50D, whether it would join another party into your lobby or yours to theirs, or 1s and 2s would join in the bigger party lobby. Back out and matchmake again until you get the map you want and a lobby merged into you. Story 96. Small regional airline had drastically discounted standby tickets and didn't take a credit card to hold reservations. Story 97. I came across a way to reset my network password at work manually with a separate administrator account. Doing so allowed me to bypass the company's password complexity requirements, one of which requires a unique password each time the password is reset. I had the same network password for 5 years until the security team started tracking privileged account activity, and I got caught. Story 98. I used to buy ESO DLC on Steam and refund it. Since ESO on Steam is essentially just a launcher, when I would refund the purchase, I would still keep the DLC and all the digital content. Found it out by accident, but kept doing it for every expansion DLC. They must have wised up and fixed this sometime after Greymore. Story 99. Papa John's near my house screwed up our order, so they gave us 3 free pizza of your choice coupons as a sorry. We used the first one by calling in our order and telling them about the coupon. They delivered it, we tipped the driver, ate the pizza. Realized later that night that they never grabbed the coupon. We used those 3 coupons probably 20 times. Every once in a while they would take one, but most of the time they forgot and we used it again next week. It was a few months of free pizzas for us. Eloy. Story 100. I eke out a modest living buying pallets of store, return tools and hardware, and reselling it on eBay. This has shown me that lots of people run a free tool rental scam by buying a tool, using it for one small job, then returning it in nearly new and perfectly functional condition for a refund. I also get a lot of tool battery packs where people buy a fresh replacement, then return their 5-year-old and very used up looking old battery in the clear package. Lowe's in particular needs to train and motivate their return desk clerks better if they want to cut their shrinkage numbers way down. Story 101. At Safeway in Canada, if you spent over you got a discount on gas code on your receipt. The last 2 digits of the code was actually the discount, up to 10 CWL. So just put 10 instead of what it said, and you got 10 cents off of L. The same code kept working from 10 cents, 9 cents, 8 cents, etc. Story 102. I worked at a home improvement store called Home Depot. Products put on sale would have the price dropped over time until they reached 1 cent. At that point, it would be in shrinkage, and the loss would only be a penny, and it would be thrown in the trash. I often would buy these items for a penny instead of letting them be shrunk and tossed. Story 103. My university email never expired even after graduation. I still get student discounts on just about everything requiring an active school email. Story 104. You can view the actual tax forms in TurboTax. I just got used to the flow of questions they asked, so I use that to fill in most of the info. Don't have to file through them, just copy what's on the forms and mail it to avoid paying. Story 105. The local Carl's Jr. manager gave us a small stack of coupons for a free Superstar burger. They were clearly photocopied and printed on red and blue paper. There was 0 fine print on them, do not duplicate, etc. We immediately went to the Kinko's and lined them up to fit a standard 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. We used some of that white Post-it note tape to eliminate dirty edges or shadows and made a clean master sheet. We then matched the paper stock and printed off maybe 40 pages of each color and cut them on those sweet rotary paper cutters they used to have. We had a good 3-4 month run using them at several locations before the jig was up. Turns out they were for lucky seat winners at the local college basketball games. They'd handed out maybe 100 during the whole season, but we'd redeemed several hundred of them by that point. Story 106. Best Buy used to replace and upgrade your iPod completely for free if the one you had stopped working and they couldn't figure out why. I used to stick a knife in the charging outlet of the iPod to make it so that the device wouldn't charge. Geek Squad couldn't figure out why it wouldn't charge, so they would upgrade my iPod. I did this whenever a new generation dropped for a while. Story 107. Kava had some glitch with their register where the person working it would just say yours is free. I was baffled the first time it happened, but I would go back the same day and time, Thursdays at 1 p.m., and I would sometimes be the lucky one who would get a random free meal. Once it happened to the guy in line just ahead of me. In total, I got 5 free meals doing this. No idea what the glitch was. Then my schedule changed and I stopped going. I assumed they patched this. Story 108. For super good coupons at fast food drive-thrus, like BOGOs or whatever, I just forget to give them at the window. I lay them clearly visible next to me. Half the time they never ask, and I pay and live to use them the next day. Hope that doesn't mess up their register. Story 109. A bus pass was like $100 a month. A semester at the community college got you a free bus pass for 3 months. You could get the pass when you got your ID before classes actually started, so you could sign up for classes, get the pass, and then cancel for a full refund for a free bus pass for 3 months. Did this for 2 years before they closed it. Story 110. Not really a secret, and it's still a thing today, but it was much, much more common back in the days, 10 years ago. Pretty much any online store that had a discount code page. You could type in 25 off or other variations, and oftentimes you'd get a discount. These are often left in debugging codes that was forgotten about. Story 111. eBay Auto would allow free Carfax checks on cars that were for sale on the site. You just had to copy the URL, go to a new window and delete the VIN in the URL and add any VIN from any car and get a free Carfax report. Story 112. Before concert scanned tickets, you used to be able to buy tickets from Ticketmaster, then report them as having never been received. They'd tell you to wait until a day or two before concert, then you'd call back and say they still weren't there. TM would then have tickets issued to you at will call. Now you had two sets of tickets. Not only did this work once, but you could do it every single time since they didn't tag your account or anything. Went to dozens of shows from 2000, 2004-ish, and got essentially half-price tickets for me and my friends. Story 113. 25 years ago, the WSFTP program saved passwords in a muddled format. However, you could copy the file to another computer, and it worked. I may have copied an annoying person's file and uploaded and changed data they had access to. So many people of the day were WTF that worked. Story 114. Never been patched. At least I don't think it has. You can call OtterBox and per their lifetime warranty, receive your replacement OtterBox case. Story 115. It's been almost 20 years. Campus dining had fountain drinks located in the dining area of one hall, downstairs from the cafeteria. You'd buy your food and empty fountain drink cup from the cashier and then proceed to fill your drink, plus free refills, downstairs in the dining room. The dining room also doubled as a study area after hours. So while the food wasn't $2.47, the drink fountains were usually online until the late-night food options closed down and shut it off. My roommate and I would accidentally pull 2 drink cups off the shelf before checkout, then take our extras back to our dorm room and stack them. 2 people eating 2-3 acts a day there meant we had a massive stack of cups within a short few weeks. We could then take to the fountain and fill for free whenever we felt like it. Need a pop before class? Done. Mixers for your illicit adult beverage stash at 1 a.m.? Hell yeah. Didn't feel like paying a meal swipe for a drink? Easy. We eventually started getting asked to put our accidental cups back, as I'm sure we were on camera filling pop at weird hours. Story 116. I was working full-time and finishing my master's after work. I had to drive to work on class days, but parking passes were expensive as fudge, and I only needed it 2 times a week. Instead, if I parked in the lot at work, I'd get a ticket, for only 3 if paid within 24 hours. So I kept a checkbook in my car and would drop off the payment on my way home from class. I didn't need to do it daily because nearby neighborhoods had free street parking, so like half the time, I'd find a street spot and be good. They changed the lot, and now it's like a 50 ticket to park there, and they changed many of the spots to designated vehicles so you could get towed. Story 117. I used to work for a shoe store back in college, selling higher-end hiking shoes, and there was a pro deals site that was 20 off wholesale. They never took my name out of the system. I got myself and friends and family discounted shoes for almost 15 years. They finally updated the pro deal site a couple years ago, but sent me a pro deal discount code to get up to 8 pairs of shoes at the discounted price on the normal website. You bet your jerk I got myself a few, and also my fiance and my parents discounted shoes for Christmas. I'm still wearing the last pair. Sadly, the new Pro Deal site does not work with my credentials. Story 118. Our company's expenses website has a spot to put your normal commute in if you had to go to a job site, and it would deduct those miles from the route. I was working from home and realized you could put a negative number for the commute and it would increase your reimbursement by that amount. I only ever used one because some locations had a lot of on-plant driving that happened after getting to the Google address. Story 119. This wasn't me, but a neighbor who was well off financially. If they got an EV, the city would install an EV charging station right outside their row home, and the spot would be EV parking only. At the time, there were very few folks with EVs, so they essentially had a spot right outside their door. It was all well and good until more folks started getting EVs, and they didn't have a dedicated spot. Story 120. When I was just starting to work and had my first mobile phone plan, I'd often forget to pay, so got a reminder and then 1 or 2 more. Then when I paid a month later, I would get a message saying thank you for paying the current month. So did not pay next month and waited for the reminder, which I then paid. And again, the same thing happened. The whole time I would only pay every other month. Thank you, Dutch Tone, RIP. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vanchus. See you soon.